Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open a 1700-year-old cold case. Yep, we're heading out on a continent-spanning hunt to piece together the bizarre, fragmented, and totally fascinating story behind the world's most famous symbol of love, Saint Valentine himself. Okay, so let's just dive right in, because the story you think the one with the secret weddings and the romantic notes, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. The truth is so much stranger, and it involves a hunt for clues that takes us all across Europe. So our investigation kicks off with a pretty morbid discovery. The saint is not in one piece, not even close. His skull, which is usually crowned with flowers, sits in a basilica right in the heart of Rome. And believe me, that's just our first stop on this very strange journey. And get this, the very organ we all associate with love, his heart, is believed to be in a completely different country. It's enshrined in a church in Dublin, Ireland. How about that for irony? Oh, the list just keeps going. Other pieces, like a single finger bone, are scattered all over the continent, turning up in a small church in England of all places. And all of this raises the central question of our entire investigation. How on earth did this happen? All right, let's rewind to the beginning of the case file and see how this all builds. Because before we can even begin to track the body, we have to identify the victim. And it turns out, the identity of the saint, that's our first major clue. You see, the historical record is so murky that a lot of scholars think the legend of Saint Valentine might actually be a mashup of two different men. You had a priest in Rome and a bishop from a town called Terni. Now, they were both martyred around the same time, both on February 14th, and both buried on the same road out of Rome. It's a classic case of stories getting tangled up over time. And this is really where we have to separate fact from fiction. All those romantic tales we know and love, secretly marrying couples against the emperor's orders, or signing a letter from your Valentine, none of that showed up until centuries after his death. They were pretty much invented and made famous by medieval poets like Geoffrey Chaucer. So if the man, or, men, was buried in one piece in Rome, how did his bones end up scattered all over Europe? Well, this brings us to a really crucial and kind of strange medieval practice that basically turned holy remains into a type of treasure. So, starting around the 4th century, the church began this practice called translation. Now, it has nothing to do with changing languages. It literally means physically moving the relics of saints from their original tombs so they could be placed inside churches, often right on the main altar. But why? Why would they do this? Well, there were a few key reasons. For one, it was a way to protect the remains from being destroyed. It also let more people come and worship them. And this is the big one. It was a massive status symbol. I mean, having a relic from a major saint could turn your local church into an international destination. You can see the saint's journey was a long one. For centuries, the remains were just sitting in the catacombs of Rome. But then, in the 19th century, things just exploded, leading to what historians call the Great Dispersion. A really pivotal moment came in 1836. Pope Gregory XVI gave this huge collection of relics, which had been dug up from a Roman catacomb and identified as St. Valentine's, to a super charismatic Irish priest named Father John Spret. And that right there is exactly how a major shrine to the Roman Saint of Love ended up in Dublin. Okay, let's follow the evidence. We're going to go on a quick, rapid-fire tour of the most famous pieces of St. Valentine and trace this incredible trail of bones right across the continent. First stop, we're back in Rome. His flower-crowned skull is on display in the Basilica of Santa Maria in Cosmedin. But here's the most ironic part. Most tourists who go there are actually there to see this ancient stone carving called the Mouth of Truth, and they walk right past the saint's skull without a second glance. Next up, we're in Dublin. The relics that were gifted to Father Sprat, including what's believed to be the saint's heart, have become a huge focal point for lovers. Couples literally flock to the church, especially on Valentine's Day, to get blessings for their relationships. And then you've got the cold case in Coventry, England. Here, a tiny finger bone sits in this small golden case, but its history is almost completely lost to time. How it ended up here, that's a genuine historical whodunit. So why can't we trace its story? Well, it's a tale of just terrible luck. The church's crucial records were destroyed not once but twice, first by a fire and then decades later by a flood. The best guess is that it was brought over from Ireland, but there's absolutely zero proof. And the map of claimed relics just keeps on growing. Seriously. There's a shoulder blade in Prague, a full skeleton in a golden box in Glasgow, and other fragments in Madrid, Malta, France, Poland. It was truly an international phenomenon. Okay, so what does all this scattering really tell us? Well, it points to something way more complex than just simple devotion. It really reveals this surprisingly pragmatic, almost business-like side to the whole story of faith. Experts have this fascinating conclusion. For centuries, relics basically operated as a kind of spiritual and economic currency. It wasn't just about piety. This was about driving influence, power, and yeah, money. And the business model behind it? It was simple, but it was powerful. Step 1, get your hands on the bones of a famous saint. Step 2, attract pilgrims who would travel from all over to see them. Step 3, just sit back and watch as your church's prestige and its income grew like crazy. But, and this is a huge but, this system had a major flaw. With very little regulation, the trade in relics was just flooded with fakes. Everybody knew it was happening, which just adds another layer of mystery to the question of which of St. Valentine's bones, if any, are the real deal. And so that leaves us with one final fascinating puzzle. After we've traced the bones, the legends, and the money, we can see the story isn't a simple choice between faith and marketing. The real question might just be, did the business of belief actually create the legend we know today, forever fusing genuine devotion with one of the most successful and enduring marketing campaigns in history?